What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Chat HVAC. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Chat HVAC, where we give you quick answers to your comfort questions. I'm your host, Scott Jackson, and I'm the senior technician here at Comfort Solutions Heating and Cooling in Lebanon, Ohio. And today, we're going to be talking about something that could save you from waking up in a freezing house this winter. The top 5 signs that your furnace is about to fail. If your system's been making strange noises, running constantly, or just not keeping up with the colder weather that we've just started having, you'll want to stick around. We're covering the biggest red flags to watch before your furnace calls it quits. And hey, before we dive in, if you enjoy the show, take a second to like, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on a podcast platform like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, go ahead and follow the show, rate and review the show. Those things help us out tremendously. If you want to support Chat HVAC or you like what we're doing here in any way, shape, or form, those are the best ways that you can do that right now. So moving on here, let's go ahead and just dive in. Sign number 1. Strange noises. I know this is maybe a little bit of a misnomer at times because there are some noises that might sound strange to homeowners that maybe aren't strange. But there are some telltale noises that when you start hearing these, you know that there's at least a major problem. Now, notice the episode is titled Top 5 Signs That Your Furnace is About to Fail, not that you need to buy a new one. So what we mean by fail is just that it's going to stop working, right? So if that might be self-explanatory. Just wanted to clarify that a little bit. But some common sounds that might be concerning and often are concerning. If you hear loud banging, rattling, screeching, grinding, any of those sort of like abrasive mechanical noises, those things are those are definitely noises to watch out for. Those definitely are indicating, hey, I need to call a professional out here to find out what's going on and maybe preemptively solve an issue before I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm cold. But each of those sounds could potentially indicate things like loose components, blower motor problems, ignition problems. There's a whole slew of things that your technician will be able to kind of evaluate when they get out there. If you hear a grinding or if you hear a rattling or a banging, that's usually something to do with a blower motor or maybe a draft inducer motor, something like that. Any sort of motor that actively spins, has bearings, those kinds of things. Those are really the most popular culprits for those types of noises. But if you hear some of those noises that are happening, like I've heard of people who, they hear a loud noise in their car's making a funny noise. They just turn up the music louder so that they can't hear it, kind of like out of sight, out of mind. If you ignore these problems, they could potentially be much bigger problems later on in the future. So just if you start to notice something abnormal or you start to notice a noise that's kind of out of the norm for your system, I would really encourage you to, if you want to do some investigation yourself, it's totally cool. Lots of times you can do a quick visual inspection and find out if something is broken, or call a professional near you. If you're in the Cincinnati area of Ohio or Cincinnati-Dayton areas of Ohio, you can give Comfort Solutions a call. We'd be happy to come out and take a look at that for you, especially coming into winter. And all of our contact information is going to be in the description below. You're welcome to look at that as you need it. Sign number 2 would be uneven heating. So if you have like rooms heating inconsistently, uneven heating as in it could be you have some rooms heating, some rooms not heating, or it could be that your thermostat is running, you feel warm air coming out of the vents, then all of a sudden you don't feel warm air coming out of the vents, and then you do feel warm air coming out of the vents. Those are all signs of, it could be signs of a failing blower motor, it could be signs of something as simple as a dirty flame sensor where the furnace lights, it's producing some heat for the time being, and then all of a sudden the flame sensor signal goes out and it's telling the furnace that it doesn't know if it's lit or not, so it shuts off as a safety precaution. And just for all of you homeowners out there, real quickly, what a flame sensor is, what it does, what its purpose is, because it's a relatively common maintenance item, is it's a little rod that's in the path of the flame of the furnace, and it sends a very, very, very small amount of voltage back to the control board, letting the control board know that it is in fact lit and there is a flame present. Now, if the flame sensor fails or it's dirty or something like that, then it cannot send that signal back to the board, and the furnace itself has no idea if it's lit or not if that flame sensor isn't sending if that flame sensor is not reporting that's an issue. So that would be why your furnace would light and then shut off, and then light and then shut off. That's a really common issue. Also, blower motor problems can lend itself to having some airflow issues, and where you say your furnace lights but your blower doesn't come on, and then your furnace shuts off because it's overheated, things like that. But also, I've mentioned this, I think, in every single episode of Chat HVAC so far, and I'm going to mention it again. If you do not change your filter on a regular basis, please go check your filter, because a dirty filter can cause an airflow restriction. It can cause undue stress on your blower motor. It can cause it to fail prematurely. It can also, an extremely dirty filter can allow dirt and dust to pass through and around the filter and get onto things like your control board and your blower motor. But it can also be incredibly restrictive. And if the airflow is restricted through the furnace will overheat because it's producing heat via a flame. And if that heat cannot be displaced by the blower motor, because of an airflow restriction, it's going to overheat and you're going to find some errors and things like that. So sign number 3, rising energy bills. This is primarily present with aging furnaces, particularly furnaces that are in that 80% efficiency range. I've mentioned this in a previous episode, but just real quick, visually how you can tell if you have an 80% efficient furnace or a 90% plus efficient furnace. There's a visual indicator that you can tell there, and that would be the 80% furnace would have a metal exhaust pipe coming out of the top front of the furnace, or maybe one of the sides of the furnace, depending on the model that you have. But you would have a metal exhaust pipe that a lot of times they're sharing a vent with your water heater. And if you have a 90% efficient furnace, you will have a PVC pipe. So that's that white plastic pipe that comes out of the top of the furnace. But yeah, rising energy bills, like I said, primarily prominent with 80% efficient appliances, because these are really more so older. There's not too many brand new 80% efficient furnaces being installed, at least not here at Comfort Solutions. We try to convert people to the higher 90% efficient furnaces to be a little bit more future proof. There is a case to be made that if your gas bill is higher than it usually is, it's probably not your utility company's fault. Now, don't get me wrong. I am also a victim of rising utility costs, and I understand that. But if you have an older appliance, something to consider is that your heating system accounts for 70% of your utility bill in the winter, and your cooling system in the summer is the same way. But your HVAC accounts for 70% of your utility bills. So when you're looking at your gas bill, when you're looking at your electric bill, 70% of that is the usage of your HVAC system. That's why it's so important to have high efficiency equipment and run it at certain times. We just did an episode about smart thermostats, programmable thermostats, and why those might be beneficial in saving you money and how those work. If you're interested in that, go ahead and check that out. But yeah, there is a case to be made that it's not just Duke's fault or your local energy provider's fault. It very well could be the fact that your furnace is just incredibly inefficient. Or like for me, I have a boiler at my house. My boiler is incredibly inefficient and it needs to be replaced. And my gas bill reflects it in the wintertime. So, and then also there's a lot of cost savings to modern high efficiency replacement versus making consistent repairs on older equipment. And just real quick to kind of define our terms, what I mean when I say older system is anything north of 15 years. So if your system's over 15 years old, it's considered old. That doesn't mean it's going to die. It's just like a person who's say 80 years old. That's considered old. Doesn't mean they're going to die. It just means they're old. So yeah, it's the same thing. So I don't want you to feel like I'm saying, hey, if your furnace is over 15 years old, you need a new one, it's going to die. It just means that, hey, it's approaching its average life expectancy. Just be aware there might be some more problems here than normal. And then, yeah, pressing on here. Sign number 4, frequent cycling, like short cycling or having trouble staying on. I kind of alluded to this in a previous point, but what short cycling is it will come on for a few minutes, shut off, come on for a few minutes, shut off, and then so on and so forth. This is a really popular issue that I get calls about a lot as a technician here at Comfort Solutions. And some possible causes to that would be, say, a bad limit switch, which all a limit switch is a safety device in the furnace that tells the control board, hey, the furnace is too hot. We need to shut off and let it cool down. So what it will do is it will shut the flame off, run the blower, cool the furnace off, and then try to light again, and then go through the same process. That's really popular with dirty filters. So just be aware of that. A dirty flame sensor, like I said before, I've already explained that. I won't dive too deep into that anymore. Or you could have a potential thermostat issue where it's dropping the signal from the thermostat to the furnace, and it intermittently is making that connection. Short cycling can lead to a potential total breakdown of the furnace. For instance, like if the limit switch isn't addressed, what it will do is it will go out on what's called a lockout, in which you have to manually reset the furnace. Dirty flame sensor will potentially do the same thing. Some furnaces have, loss of flame proof lockout or something like that. But lots of times these furnaces can, just for safety concerns, lock themselves out. This can be a permanent issue that you might need to have a professional come out and take a look at. Now, pushing on here to sign number 5. This is our last sign that we're going to discuss today, but age and frequent repairs. So we've kind of alluded to this on when is it time to repair versus time to replace. I think that was one of our earlier episodes. But, your average lifespan is about 15 years. And if you're over that average life expectancy and you're also doing pretty consistent repairs, or you've had some major repairs done at all during the life of the system, might be getting close to that furnace failing and maybe considering a replacement at that point. But, some signs that repairs are no longer cost effective. We talked about the kind of the 50% rule. If the repair is going to be at least 50% of the cost of a new furnace, it would make sense to just do a new furnace. Again, we've talked about all of that in our previous episode on when is it time to repair versus replace, but weighing that repair versus replace decision is incredibly helpful. So for sign number 5, I'm actually going to point you to a previous episode of ours. I believe it's titled when to repair versus replace or something to that effect. It'll be linked in the description below for your consuming pleasure. Yeah, honestly, all of these signs here, signs 1 through 5, just a quick review. Sign number 1, strange noises. Sign number 2, inconsistent heating. Sign number 3, rising energy bills. Sign number 4, frequent cycling or trouble staying on, so short cycling. Or sign number 5, making a lot of repairs on an old furnace. All of these signs here can be proven or even mitigated to a degree with consistent maintenance. And I have talked ad nauseum about the importance of maintenance and why maintenance is important and why we need to do it and why those things matter. But I mean, if you have noticed any of these warning signs at all, please don't wait. Don't just ignore it. Reach out to your local HVAC professional. Again, if you're here in the Dayton or Cincinnati areas of Ohio, go ahead and give us a call. Our contact information is listed below, but if you're outside of our service area, reach out to your local trusted HVAC provider for an inspection. They'll come out and take a look at it for you and get you taken care of before we get into the dead of winter, if you're in a climate where that's relevant. All right, everybody, that is a wrap on today's episode of Chat HVAC. Hopefully you get a better idea of what your furnace might be trying to tell you and maybe caught a few signs before they turn into no heat emergencies. If you found this episode helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who's been complaining about a cold house lately. It really helps the show grow a lot, and it keeps people comfortable and informed throughout the heating season. Next week, we're going to be switching gears, and we're going to be talking about how to heat your home efficiently without breaking the bank. We're going to cover smart thermostat tricks, insulation hacks, and some low-cost upgrades that can help save you some serious money on your energy bills. Again, heating and cooling, 70% of your utility bill. That's a big chunk. You're not going to want to miss it. On that note, thanks for tuning in. My name is Scott Jackson. This is Chat HVAC, and we will see you all next week.